That means when you get back to America, you have to make inquiry how I will get to America, right?
I'm going to do that, babe. I am going to get in touch with an immigration lawyer.
She might go back to her country and she might change her mind on most of the promises, like bringing me to her country.
Daniel's face crumples as Lisa steps away, the airport crowd blurring into the background, and for a split second, it's impossible to tell if he's crying for her or for something much bigger slipping through his fingers. The tears are real, the panic is raw, but the words that tumble out next hit harder than any goodbye. He's terrified Lisa will get on that plane, land in America, and change her mind about bringing him over. That's the moment the whole story flips. This isn't a regular heartbreak. This is a man watching his shot at a new life walk out the door, and he knows it. Welcome to Reality Sport. I'm Aliva, and if you think you've seen drama, buckle up, because this is where the real game starts. Hit that subscribe button and drop your wildest theory in the comments, because what you're about to see will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about love, loyalty, and the price of a promise. Lisa's arms are wrapped around Daniel, but her eyes are somewhere else, scanning the future she's been building in her head for months. She's not just leaving a man behind. She's leaving behind the fantasy that this trip would fix everything, that love could paper over the cracks, that a wedding would lock in the dream before reality caught up. Daniel's grip tightens, desperate, and you can almost feel the calculation behind the heartbreak. Every tear is a plea, every sob a negotiation, and the air between them is thick with everything they're not saying. Is this love, or is this survival? Is Daniel mourning Lisa, or is he mourning the future she represents? A ticket out, a shot at security, a way to rewrite his story? The stakes are sky high, and both of them know it, even if they can't say it out loud. The airport goodbye is supposed to be the end of a love story, but here it's the start of a psychological chess match. Lisa's crying, but her tears are tangled up in hope and fear, in the promises she's made and the doubts she's been swallowing since the first red flag. Daniel's crying, but his fear is sharper, more urgent, and it's aimed straight at the one thing he can't control: what happens when Lisa goes home and starts thinking for herself. The cameras catch every shaky breath, every whispered reassurance, but underneath the surface, the real drama is playing out in the silence between their words. Lisa wants to believe this is love, that distance won't kill what they've built, that Daniel's tears mean he's all in. Daniel wants to believe he's still got a grip on the future, that Lisa's heart is strong enough to keep the plan alive, that the goodbye isn't the end of his American dream. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Lisa's goodbye isn't really about Daniel at all. It's about the story she's been telling herself, the hope she's been clinging to, the idea that if she loves hard enough, sacrifices enough, believes enough, she can turn this messy, complicated relationship into the fairy tale ending she's always wanted. She's not just grieving Daniel. She's grieving the future she thought she could buy with enough effort, enough money, enough faith. And as the plane boards and the distance grows, both of them are left holding on to different versions of the same goodbye. One chasing escape, the other chasing meaning. Both terrified of what happens when the fantasy finally breaks. Rewind to the days before the airport, and the cracks are already showing, even if both of them are working overtime to pretend everything's fine. The hotel room is quiet, but not the comfortable kind. Every conversation feels like it's walking on eggshells, every laugh a little too forced, every silence stretching just a bit too long. Daniel keeps circling back to the same topic, his voice soft but insistent, asking Lisa when they'll finally make things official, when she'll say yes to marriage, when the future will stop being a promise and start being a plan. He's charming, sure, but there's a sharpness under the surface, a sense that he's racing against a clock only he can hear. Every compliment is followed by a question, every sweet moment by a reminder of what's at stake. He's not just wooing Lisa, he's trying to keep the momentum alive, terrified that if things slow down, the whole story will fall apart. Lisa, on the other hand, is clinging to the idea that love can fix anything, that if she just holds on tight enough, the doubts will fade and the dream will come true. She brushes off the awkward moments, laughs away the tension, and tells herself that every relationship has bumps in the road. But the red flags are piling up, missed promises, half answers, and a growing sense that Daniel's urgency isn't about her, but about what she represents. Still, she pushes those thoughts aside, focusing on the good moments, the inside jokes, the way Daniel looks at her when he thinks she's not watching. She wants to believe this is real, that the love story she's invested in is worth every risk, every dollar, every sleepless night. But underneath the surface, the tension is building. Daniel's obsession with locking things in, with getting a commitment before Lisa leaves, isn't lost on her, even if she doesn't want to admit it. He's always talking about the future, about visas and paperwork, about how everything will be better once they're together in America. Lisa hears the words, but she's starting to wonder if she's the prize or the passport. The pressure is relentless, and every time she hesitates, Daniel turns up the charm, the vulnerability, the promises of forever. It's a dance, and both of them know the steps, but the music is getting faster, and neither one is sure how long they can keep up. What happens when love and opportunity get tangled up so tightly you can't tell where one ends and the other begins? That's the question hanging over every moment, every kiss, every late-night conversation. And just when it seems like Daniel has all the power, Lisa starts to draw a line in the sand, a secret boundary that, if she sticks to it, could flip the entire dynamic and force Daniel to show his true hand. Lisa sits across from Daniel, her hands tight around her phone, her voice steady in a way it hasn't been all trip. She's tired of the endless requests, tired of feeling like her wallet is more important than her heart, tired of pretending she doesn't notice how every conversation about the future somehow circles back to money. This time, she doesn't dodge the topic. She tells Daniel, clear as day, that the money stops here. No more transfers for emergencies, no more covering daily expenses, no more blurring the line between support and sacrifice. If there's any cash left, it's going straight to the legal process, not to another round of promises. The air shifts instantly. Daniel's smile flickers, his eyes dart away, but he nods, says he understands, says he wants what's best for both of them. On the surface, he's agreeable, even grateful, but underneath, something tightens. He's calculating, weighing his next move, already searching for the loophole that will keep the old pattern alive. The emotional stakes couldn't be higher. Lisa's heart is on the line, but so is her self-respect. She wants to believe Daniel loves her for her, not for what she can provide, but every time she's bailed him out, every time she's sent another wire, the doubt has grown a little louder. Is this relationship about love, or is it about survival? Is Daniel's devotion real, or is it a strategy to keep the pipeline open until he gets what he wants? The questions swirl, and Lisa feels the weight of every decision pressing down on her. She's not naïve, she knows how these stories go, how easy it is to get swept up in the fantasy and ignore the reality. But this time, she's drawing a line, and she's watching closely to see how Daniel reacts when the easy money dries up. Money has a way of exposing motive, especially in relationships that cross borders and cultures. It's one thing to talk about love, to make grand gestures and whisper sweet nothings, but when the bills come due, when the support stops flowing, the truth has a way of surfacing. Lisa's boundary isn't just about dollars and cents, it's about testing the foundation of what they've built. If Daniel is in this for the right reasons, he'll accept the new rules and focus on the future they claim to want. If not, the cracks will widen, and the real motive will show itself in the days to come. Daniel's agreement sounds good, but his eyes tell a different story. He's not used to hearing no, not from Lisa, not when the stakes are this high. The question now is whether he'll respect the boundary or find a way to bend it, whether love can survive without the safety net of constant support, or whether the relationship will unravel the moment the money stops flowing. The moment Lisa draws that financial line, the entire relationship shifts gears and the visa process takes center stage, turning every conversation into a negotiation about paperwork, deadlines, and the ticking clock of long-distance love. Daniel's urgency ramps up fast. He's texting Lisa about immigration lawyers, asking for updates, pushing for answers, and every message carries a hint of panic, as if every day that passes is another chance for the dream to slip away. Lisa, meanwhile, is back in her world, juggling work, bills, and the endless grind of real life. The fantasy of a quick reunion fades as she faces the reality of slow-moving bureaucracy, expensive legal fees, and the uncertainty that comes with every step of the process. She wants to keep her promise, but the weight of it grows heavier with every delay, every unanswered email, every new form to fill out. The audience is split, and you can feel it in every comment section and group chat. Some see Daniel as a scammer, a master manipulator who's playing the long game, using tears and urgency to keep Lisa on the hook until he gets what he wants. Others see a desperate lover, someone trapped by circumstance, clinging to the only hope he has for a better life. The truth is, it's almost impossible to separate the two. Mixed motives are messy, and when love and opportunity get tangled up, even the people inside the relationship can't always tell where one ends and the other begins. Daniel's fear is real, but so is his ambition. Lisa's hope is genuine, but so is her need to believe she hasn't wasted her time, her money, her heart. It's easy to judge from the outside, to say you'd never fall for it, never let yourself get played. But the reality is so much more complicated. When someone you care about is crying on the other end of the phone, when they're promising you a future, when every setback feels like a personal failure, the lines blur fast. That's why these stories are so addictive, so infuriating, so hard to look away from. They force you to question your own instincts, your own boundaries, your own willingness to believe in the best, even when the evidence points the other way. But the real test is coming, and it's not about paperwork or promises. It's about what happens when Daniel's true priorities slip out, when the pressure gets too high and the mask starts to crack. As the days stretch out and the distance grows, the relationship shifts from in-person drama to a digital tug-of-war, with every call and text carrying more weight than ever. Daniel's messages start out sweet, full of longing and promises, but it doesn't take long for the tone to change. He leans into vulnerability, telling Lisa how hard things have gotten since she left, how much he misses her, how empty life feels without her support. The guilt seeps in slowly, disguised as honesty, and before Lisa knows it, she's carrying the weight of his sadness on top of her own doubts. Every time she tries to hold the line, to remind herself why she set boundaries in the first place, Daniel finds a new way to tug at her heartstrings. He brings up old memories, talks about the future they planned, and always circles back to how much he needs her. Emotionally, yes, but sometimes in ways that sound a lot like another request for help. The emergency loophole is never far away. Daniel doesn't ask outright, not at first. Instead, he hints at problems, unexpected bills, family crises, setbacks that threaten to derail the visa process. He never says he expects Lisa to fix it, but the implication hangs in the air, heavy and unspoken. Lisa feels the pressure building, the old pattern trying to sneak back in through the side door. She wants to be strong, to stick to her promise, but every message from Daniel feels like a test of her resolve. Is she heartless if she says no? Is she cruel for putting her own needs first? The guilt gnaws at her, and she starts to question her own judgment, wondering if she's being too harsh, too suspicious, too closed off to the possibility that Daniel's pain is real. This is where emotional leverage does its quiet work. It's not always loud or obvious. Sometimes it's a sigh on the phone, a late-night text about missing her, a story about how hard things are without her help. If you've ever found yourself bending your own rules, sending money you can't afford, or making excuses for someone else's behavior because you're afraid of letting them down, you know exactly how powerful this kind of manipulation can be. It's not about one big ask. It's about 1,000 tiny moments that add up until you're back where you started, wondering how you lost control. Lisa's struggle is real, and it's one that anyone who's ever loved someone with mixed motives will recognize. She wants to believe in the best, but the evidence keeps piling up. And the next time Daniel calls with an emergency, she'll have to decide whether to hold the line or let the old pattern take over again. Lisa sits alone in her apartment, the glow of her phone lighting up her face as she scrolls through old messages, replaying every conversation with Daniel in her mind. The distance has given her something she didn't have in Nigeria: space to think, to breathe, to see the relationship without the constant pressure of his presence. The fog of emotion starts to lift, and for the first time, she notices the patterns she missed before. Every time she tried to set a boundary, Daniel agreed, but only on the surface. His promises always came with a quiet condition, a loophole he could slip through when things got tough. Now, with miles between them, those conditions start to show. He's still sweet, still attentive, but his patience is wearing thin. When Lisa doesn't respond right away, he gets short. When she reminds him of the new rules, he pushes back, not with anger, but with disappointment, with stories about how hard things are, with reminders of everything they've been through together. The stakes have never been higher. Lisa knows that if she gives in now, the old pattern will snap back into place, stronger than ever. But holding the line is harder than she expected. Every day brings a new test, a new story, a new reason to question whether she's being fair or just protecting herself. The difference between love and leverage has never felt so sharp. She remembers the way Daniel looked at her at the airport, the way he held her hand, the way he promised her a future. But she also remembers the pressure, the urgency, the way every conversation seemed to circle back to what she could do for him. The more she reflects, the more she sees that love shouldn't feel like a transaction, shouldn't come with a price tag or a list of conditions. Daniel senses the shift too. He tries to adapt, tries to play along, but his frustration leaks through. The charm is still there, but it's thinner now, stretched over a growing sense of desperation. He starts to test the boundaries, to see how far he can push before Lisa snaps. The power dynamic is changing, and both of them feel it. Lisa is no longer the easy mark, no longer willing to pay for promises. Daniel is no longer in control, no longer able to steer the relationship with tears and urgency alone. But the story isn't finished yet. There's a reversal coming, a moment that will flip everything on its head and force both Lisa and Daniel to face the truth about what they want, what they're willing to give, and what they're afraid to lose. Tears stream down both faces, but the reasons behind them couldn't be further apart. Lisa's heartbreak is raw, her chest tight with the ache of loving someone she can't quite reach, her mind replaying every sweet moment, every whispered promise, every plan for a future that now feels like it's slipping through her fingers. She's grieving the man she thought she knew, the love story she wanted so badly to believe in, the hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Her tears are for the loss of connection, for the fear that distance will turn Daniel into a memory instead of a partner, for the pain of realizing that sometimes love isn't enough to bridge the gap between two worlds. Daniel's tears, on the other hand, are tangled up in something messier. There's sadness, yes, but there's also panic, a sharp edge of fear that has nothing to do with romance and everything to do with what Lisa represents. For Daniel, Lisa isn't just a woman he loves. She's the key to a new life, a ticket to America, a chance to escape the limits of his world and start over somewhere else. Every sob is a calculation, every plea a negotiation, every promise a way to keep the dream alive for one more day. He's not just mourning Lisa, he's mourning the future he's been chasing. The opportunity that's walking out the door, the plan that's suddenly at risk of falling apart. The audience is left in the middle, torn between empathy and suspicion, between wanting to believe in love and fearing they're watching a slow-motion scam unfold. Some viewers see Daniel's pain and feel for him, convinced that his desperation is proof of real feeling, that his tears are the mark of a man who's lost something precious. Others see the pattern, the urgency, the way every conversation circles back to visas and paperwork, and they can't shake the feeling that Daniel's heartbreak is less about Lisa and more about losing his shot at a better life. The comments light up with arguments, theories, and warnings, everyone convinced they've spotted the truth, everyone sure they'd never fall for the same tricks. But the reality is so much more complicated. Mixed motives are the poison that destroys clarity, the fog that makes it impossible to know what's real and what's performance. When love and opportunity get tangled together, even the people inside the relationship can't always tell where one ends and the other begins. Daniel might care about Lisa, might even love her in his own way, but that doesn't erase the fact that he needs her for something bigger than romance. Lisa might want to believe in the best, might want to see herself as a rescuer, a partner, a believer in second chances, but that doesn't mean she's blind to the warning signs. The truth is, both of them are trapped by their own needs, their own hopes, their own fears, and neither one is willing to let go of the fantasy long enough to see the reality staring them in the face. Lisa's role in all this is more complicated than it looks. It's easy to paint her as the victim, the woman being used, the one who gave too much and got too little in return. But there's another side to the story, one that's harder to admit. Lisa needed this relationship to be real, needed it to mean something, needed to believe that all the money, all the travel, all the emotional investment wasn't wasted. She ignored the red flags because the alternative was too painful to face. She chose hope over evidence, belief over doubt, because the story she was telling herself was easier to live with than the truth. In a way, Lisa is complicit in her own denial, a willing participant in the fantasy, even as the cracks started to show. That's the trap of mixed motives. Nobody wants to see themselves as the fool, the mark, the one who got played. So you double down, you dig in, you find new reasons to believe, even when the evidence is piling up against you. Lisa's tears are real, her heartbreak is genuine, but so is her need to protect the story she's built around Daniel. She's not just grieving him, she's grieving the version of herself that believed in happy endings, that thought love could conquer anything, that wanted so badly to be right about this one thing. The split-screen truth is brutal. Both are crying, both are hurting, but for completely different reasons. Lisa is mourning the loss of love, the collapse of a dream, the end of a story she wanted to believe in. Daniel is mourning the loss of opportunity, the closing of a door, the fear that his plan is slipping away before he can lock it in. The audience is left to pick sides, to argue over motives, to wonder if anyone in this story is telling the whole truth. But what if America was never on the table? What if the visa, the paperwork, the promise of a new life was stripped away, and all that was left was two people, face to face, with nothing to offer each other but themselves? Would Daniel still be crying? Would Lisa still be holding on? Would the relationship survive without the promise of escape, without the hope of something better waiting on the other side of the ocean? That's the question that haunts every moment, every tear, every desperate plea for one more chance. The airport goodbye fades into memory, but the real test is only just beginning. With Lisa back in America and Daniel still in Nigeria, the distance between them is no longer measured in miles, but in missed calls, unanswered texts, and the slow, grinding reality of everyday life. There are no more airport hugs to paper over the cracks, no more late-night promises whispered in the dark, no more shared meals or stolen glances to keep the fantasy alive. Now, it's all about waiting. Waiting for paperwork, waiting for money to come through, waiting for the next step in a process that feels endless and unforgiving. The romance that once felt so urgent, so all-consuming, starts to fade under the harsh light of reality, and both Lisa and Daniel are forced to confront what's left when the dream is put on hold. Lisa's version of love is built on hope, on the belief that if she tries hard enough, sacrifices enough, and forgives enough, she can turn this long-distance struggle into a real partnership. She throws herself into the legal process, researching visa options, calling lawyers, and budgeting every dollar to make sure nothing gets in the way of bringing Daniel to America. She wants to prove to herself and to everyone watching that her faith wasn't misplaced, that her love is strong enough to survive the waiting, the doubt, and the endless obstacles. But as the weeks drag on, the cracks start to show. The calls with Daniel become more strained, the conversations more transactional, and the laughter that once came so easily now feels forced. Lisa starts to wonder if she's fighting for a relationship or for the idea of a relationship, if she's in love with Daniel or with the story she's been telling herself all along. Daniel's version of attachment is different. For him, the relationship has always been about movement, about progress, about getting closer to the life he wants, about keeping the momentum alive no matter what. The distance is suffocating, not just because he misses Lisa, but because every day apart feels like a step backward, a risk that the plan will fall apart before it ever really begins. He pushes Lisa for updates, for action, for reassurance that she's still committed to the process. When she hesitates, he gets anxious. When she pushes back, he gets frustrated. The love is there, but it's tangled up with fear, with urgency, with the sense that if he doesn't keep pressing, everything he's worked for will slip away. Time becomes the enemy. Every delay, every setback, every unexpected expense chips away at the foundation they've built. The legal process is slow, expensive, and full of uncertainty. Lisa finds herself drowning in paperwork, juggling her job, her bills, and the constant pressure to keep Daniel's hopes alive. Daniel, on the other hand, feels powerless, stuck in limbo, watching from afar as the future he wants slips further out of reach. The distance magnifies every insecurity, every doubt, every unspoken fear. Lisa wonders if Daniel would still love her if the visa never came through. Daniel wonders if Lisa will give up before he ever gets the chance to prove himself in person. The emotional payoff is brutal. The airport goodbye wasn't the end of their story. It was the beginning of the hardest chapter yet. Now, every day is a test of patience, of trust, of whether their connection can survive when the fantasy is stripped away and all that's left is the grind of real life. Lisa tries to stay strong, to keep believing, but the weight of responsibility is crushing. She's the one making the calls, sending the money, carrying the burden of keeping the dream alive. Daniel tries to stay hopeful, but the waiting eats at him, turning every small setback into a crisis, every delay into a reason to doubt. The cracks widen. Lisa starts to pull back, protecting herself from the constant pressure, setting firmer boundaries around her time, her money, her heart. Daniel feels the shift and pushes harder, desperate to keep the connection alive, to remind Lisa of everything they've promised each other. The tension builds, each side digging in, each afraid to admit that maybe, just maybe, the dream isn't strong enough to survive the distance. But the real twist is still to come. The fantasy that kept them going, the idea that love could conquer anything, that sacrifice would be rewarded, that the future was just a plane ticket away, starts to crumble under the weight of reality. Lisa is forced to ask herself if she's willing to keep sacrificing for a future that never seems to arrive. Daniel is forced to confront the possibility that his attachment to Lisa is as much about what she represents as who she is. The goodbye at the airport was never the end. It was the start of the real test, the moment when both of them had to decide what they were really fighting for. The truth finally lands with a weight that neither of them can ignore. Daniel's fear was never just about losing Lisa as a person, it was about losing the future she carried with her, the promise of a new life, the hope of escape, the chance to rewrite his story in a place where everything seemed possible. Every tear, every plea, every urgent message was a fight to keep that door open, to hold on to the possibility that his life could change if only Lisa kept believing, kept sacrificing, kept moving the process forward. When the fantasy starts to crumble, Daniel's panic grows sharper, his words more desperate, because he knows what's really at stake isn't just love, but opportunity slipping through his hands. Lisa's heartbreak is a different kind of pain. She's not only grieving Daniel, she's grieving the dream she built around him, the idea that love could fix what was broken, that her faith and effort would be enough to turn a complicated story into a happy ending. She's left questioning every choice, every sacrifice, every moment she ignored her own doubts. For the sake of hope. The loss isn't just about a man, it's about the version of herself that believed in the story, the future she thought she was building, the meaning she tried so hard to find in all the chaos. The audience is left to pick through the wreckage, searching for answers in a mess of mixed motives and broken promises. Was it love? Was it a scam? Or was it something even messier? A collision of need, hope, and desperation that left both people clinging to different versions of the same story? The verdict isn't simple, because both Lisa and Daniel were invested, but not in the same thing. One was fighting for connection, the other for escape. One wanted meaning, the other wanted momentum. The heartbreak is real, but so is the confusion, and the only thing that's clear is that trust doesn't survive when the motives are split. If you think this story is wild, wait until you see what happens when another 90-Day Fiancé couple faces the same crossroads, with even higher stakes and even bigger secrets. The next chapter is coming, and you won't want to miss the moment when everything changes again.